Daniel, what's your question?
So I have a question for the honourable gentleman in front of me in regards to sole traders and small businesses and of course, micro businesses as well. During the pandemic, I think it's fair to say that a lot of the small businesses like myself, we were left out in the cold. JobKeeper was not accessible to us as we were not employees of our businesses. There was a lot of friends around that were sole traders, they were contracted to others, they were not eligible as well. We were told that we should dip into our super, our future, that we'll no longer be able to attain if we draw down on it now. So moving forward into the endemic phase of COVID-19, what is your plans to help small businesses, sole traders and micro businesses moving forward?
Thank you, Daniel. PM, first you.
Well, first of all, we've cut taxes for small business down to 25%. Second of all, we've provided the instant asset write-off. And what that means is if you go and spend on a new piece of plant and equipment, a coffee machine, a fridge, a new machine in your tool kit, then you can write that off 100%. And so we've lowered taxes for small businesses because it is tough. One of the key things that small businesses have to deal with is their cash flow. And in this budget, we've provided 120% tax deduction for those you would train, but also on the investments you have to make in upgrading to cloud accounting, for example, and all the data and the digital technologies that you need to run a modern small business. You know, over the course of the pandemic, I think everybody learnt that we're in a digital economy now and we need to move on to that. And so many businesses during the pandemic adjusted amazingly well. They were doing one thing before, but they worked out how to access customers another way. And we need businesses to be able to be agile. And one of the things we've been trying to do, we tried to do it in the middle of the pandemic, but we weren't able to get support from the Labor Party, was to make the industrialisation system simpler, just more practical. There was no ideology in it. It was just to make sure that we're able to have more practical rules that people would be able to follow, supporting particularly small businesses to understand the rules that they are so they wouldn't get caught paying people less or paying more people more than they had to ensure that they could manage their cash flow. But if you move your business to a digital model, one of the most important things you do is you get paid on time. And cash flow, we've reduced the amount of payment times, particularly for small businesses, and we've challenged and got the corporates to do the same thing to reduce their payment times for small businesses. Because for small businesses, it's all about cash flow, keeping more of what they earn so you can invest it back into your business.
Mr. Albanese. Yeah, can I ask Michael what business you're in? What? Daniel. Daniel.
I own a café. I am actually closely related to the aviation sector as well because my café is on a local commercial airfield. And my trade qualification is in general cookery, but I'm a bulk production chef. So if I was holding out my previous job, I wouldn't have a job because the aviation sector crashed and the food that I was producing is no longer in demand. I was lucky that I could transition into my own business and I was lucky that I had support of my wife, but many times we were hand to mouth. We haven't made super contributions at all.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Daniel. You're just one of many who've done it so tough during this period. And I acknowledge how difficult it's been. Many people did get left behind in various sectors of the economy because they weren't eligible for the various payments which are there. Now, we supported the small business tax cut for companies below $50 million in terms of turnover to 25%. We supported the changes on the asset write-off because they were there in place when the government was elected and they withdrew them and then put them back. We don't think they should have been withdrawn in the first place. We think that as well in terms of taking pressure off your small business, what we need to do is to have a plan as well to lift wages throughout the economy. One of the things that's happening is that if people haven't got enough money to spend, if they're struggling to get by, they can't afford to go to the local cafe. They cut back. And that's one of the things that we're seeing that's holding back our economy. Now, Scott spoke about the industrial relations changes that were rejected in the Parliament that he said he will resurrect. Now, that would remove the better off overall test. That's was the problem for that legislation, which is why it was rejected. Because if you're getting rid of the better off overall test, it means you don't want people to be better off overall. It's pretty common sense, really. But
Is that what's happening?
No, that's not what's happening, and I was very
Well,
clear
you
about
said
this
you'd
today.
introduce the legislation.
No, Anthony, what we said was we would go forward with the measures that weren't the emergency pandemic measures. And so that only related to the pandemic. Now, thank goodness, we're in a situation now where the vaccine rules are changing, the other close contact rules are going in New South Wales and in Victoria. That's fantastic. There were some emergency measures that were only for that time, and that's what that related to.
But you did try to remove the better off overall
they're no
test.
longer applying, and they're not part of our forward agenda.
So you've changed
and so
your
it's,
position.
No, we haven't changed our position, Anthony. I'm just being very clear so you don't misrepresent it.